we have about 2,500 Lutheran members. So we're not a big church, and in general, as a Christian community, we're around 1% of the population. So yeah, of course, it's not easy, and for me, I was overwhelmed with how can I be a pastor, because you're not trained to be a war pastor. And the war has started in that year when I came back, and I had so many plans, and I was like, I'm going to do this and this and this when I'm there, and suddenly you're like blocked, and you get a reality check. Because I grew up in a way that life has been normalized. So all of these things that I thought, okay, it's normal, you never know, you don't really expect that to stop you from your ministry. Like when the war started and I was serving in Beit Sahur, I wasn't able anymore to drive there. And I had to drive the car one place and cross borders and take a cab to my congregation, which took me about 3 hours every day, going back and forth. So everything takes more time. And I always joke that I'm a spontaneous person. So I feel like here you might relate as Icelandic people that you always depend on the weather and how things are. Yeah, well, for us it is. It depends on the occupation. It depends on the war. It depends on our news. So as much as you look at your news channels here, we look at as much as you look at the weather channel here, we look at the news channel, and we always ask ourselves, like, can we go here, or how long does it take to go from one place to the other? And there's so many things that, yeah, I mean, it doesn't answer too much, but
well,
it's hard.
It's a starting point. It's a starting point,
yeah.
So that we know where you are situated. This is not an abstract discussion. This is your life journey to this point, involved in various ministries. I guess we know that we live in a world that is, we are constantly bombarded with conflicts, with news of war. I just came from a mission partnership consultation where our other member churches, of course, your church was represented through Bishop Ibrahim Azar in one of the consultations. Now, I was talking with a bishop coming from Venezuela, who was freshly telling us the latest news about the tensions over there. I would talk to another Bishop Ataulpa from Colombia, and they were more of a post-conflict situation, where I talked with some from Myanmar, and they are not really much in the news. And here they're talking about under military rule. And our member churches, in many ways, are such in solidarity with what you are experiencing. And maybe it might be good to take a slight step back, because not everyone here perhaps has the background to your situation. And I think you have some pictures to show us. So just to step back a bit, and where in the larger picture is your church situated, not just geographically, but also a little bit in the history of your experience, so that we can connect a little bit. Could you just give us some background to the realities where you are in right now and the church and what you are facing? So you highlighted a little bit about that. What could be a short distance becomes a long distance travel because of checkpoints and occupation and so on. Could you share with us, just to give us newcomers a bit of background as well?
Yeah, I mean, where to start when talking about the land? There's so much that happens, and people will say, "Oh, it's such a complicated situation." While it's not that complicated, I mean, I know you don't want the geographical stuff, but in order to understand the political,
yes, have the geographical stuff, of course.
But you can see on the map up there. You can see the lines that are there, and this yellow parts. These are lands that should be considered Palestine, or are considered Palestine. Yet it is not this one piece that you can see. Like even the whole West Bank that is marked. This is not how it is these days. So in between those lands are checkpoints. Is a wall that is around how many? 9 feet tall.
Almost as tall as that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a picture of it. 1 second. Here you can see the wall. This is the checkpoint, but there's the wall, like there's the bus, so you can at least have a visual of how tall it is. It's 3 times tall, the Berlin Wall that was built, and in in between, like, as you can see, this is like a reality of every day, like. The lands that have not, that's where all of our congregation members are located. So if we're talking about all these churches, you think, oh, it's all close by. It is all close by, but it's not reachable. So we cannot just easily reach everyone. And it is making our ministries in many ways difficult because everything is controlled by Israel. So as a church in Palestine, in Jerusalem as well, we need permissions for our congregation members to come together. If we want to meet or want to gather all of them, of course, Jordan is always isolated because they never get visas to come to Israel and or to Palestine, and we can, like the ones who are in Jerusalem, they have permission to go all over the land because we live there, but we do not have rights. So we are just citizens. We're not citizens, we're just residents of Jerusalem. And that would make us not equal towards the whole population anyway. Between the Israeli citizens are there, and then there are Palestinians, which are also downgraded to many parts. Like if you live in Jerusalem, if you live in certain parts of the land, you're always treated the same way. If you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, we're treated all the same. So, but if we're talking about our reality, we just had our youth camps and our congregational camps in the summer. So the only place that you can see here, or maybe better to show you here, the only place that we can meet is Jericho. Jericho is here, close to Jerusalem, and that's the only place where all of them can travel there. When our congregation members traveled, they traveled from Ramallah, which took 1.5 hours to Jericho. From Bethlehem, it took also 1.5 hours. And the ones who are in Jordan could not make it, and even though they're close, Jordan and Jericho, but no, they're not able to go there. And the ones who are from Jerusalem, it took us like 40-minute drive and so on. So you can just, in order for you to visualize that everyone got to be together, yet this is the only place, and if you know how hot the weather is right now in the Middle East, in Jericho, it's even worse than Jerusalem. Like in Jerusalem, it's 30 degrees, and in Jericho, it's like 48. So 48. And 48 degrees, and that's where we were meeting. And of course, there's AC in the hotel, yet it's of course a challenge with how much can you do in a closed room with so many members, with so many youth, and the youth, of course, get frustrated.
Talk about how many youth were gathered in the recent camp.
So we had 3 youth camps. So we had Sunday school, the teenagers, and that above 18, and we had quite a lot. Like the teenager ones, we had about 100 teenagers coming together, which was overwhelming for all of us. We were 4 pastors, and we were not able to kind of control that all the time. But it was nice. But at least we don't have that many qualities. Like I think a lot of hotels also don't want that many young people in their hotels, and we cannot camp out there. So there was one Christian family that offers always a small resort that we book the whole resort, obviously, because then the youth sleep together like 6 in one room, and it's okay. But we are in even a smaller hall like this, a smaller one, like maybe this, and that was like the meeting room for 100 youth. And we were there all the time, and we could not go outside and do activities with them. But I mean, you see the challenges of we don't have that many facilities in order for us to work with. So we kind of work with what we have, which is great, and I think we always make it work, obviously. But at the same time, it's hard. Like some of the youth are always discouraged. They're like, oh, like they're not motivated anymore. Like, but the thing is that when they get together, when they come together from all the different churches, because they don't get to see each other all the time, they're like, why can't we meet each other all the time, like more than once a year? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry to tell you, but of course, they already know, but they're like, but can't we do things? I'm like, yeah, we're trying, but it's not all in our hands, because even if they want to go to see the holy sites around, like everyone comes and goes tours around, and everyone has the right to do that, but the Palestinians who live there are not able to do that.
So let's say if they want to do it, what kind of processes, what makes it, give us a picture of why is it so hard, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like they have green IDs, so they need to go to the Israeli ministry or the Israeli office there to apply to get a permit.
For each of the youth, right?
For each of the youth. Okay. And we do it from the church when there's a youth, so we send them the list with their ID numbers and everything. And usually that's how the process was. But now they don't even take on permissions. Like usually we have like our ministry of religions that they do that for us, or some, and it's not, we're sometimes lucky that some of them get permissions, but then some don't. So how do you do a camp with youth, like with half of the youth who got permissions, but then there are like 4 or 5 who don't? So do you still do it? And we tell them, hey, you can't come with us this time. So it's really hard, like breaking it from every side. So it's not always promised, but it's always the Israeli authorities that give the permission, and it's always through the religion of ministry, the Ministry of Religious Affairs. And if they do it individually, it's a different process, but it's like you always have to have a reason to get out.
So this is more like a daily life ministry kind of challenge, right?
Definitely.
But as all of us have been following the news, you know, with what's happening in Gaza and of course now West Bank, I guess some of us have a sense of, you know, sometimes empathy, like a despair, like what's going on, and how has it been even more challenging, for example, in the last 1 year, right?
Yeah.
It's always been challenging, but now even more challenging. Perhaps you could just give us some highlights of what has it been, how has it been for you as well as the church overall since.
Yeah, I mean...
since October the 7th, for example. Yeah.
I mean, it's, if I tell you, like, not a lot has changed since October 7th, but it just got worse. So I would say that the whole West Bank got closed, so all the checkpoints you were not able to enter in or out. Until today, only a few are open. What has changed is that because of that, you're stuck in a lot of traffic going in and out of the West Bank. Mostly it was a challenge, like in the beginning everything was closed, like schools and everything, but then after Christmas we started, or throughout Christmas time we started opening up, and even till now, like things are not open completely, like the old city is quite closed, so we are having challenges with a lot of people who don't have work anymore, because a lot of our people work in tourism, so they don't have anything to do right now, so they're like waiting or finding different things to do. A lot of people have been leaving. So since the beginning of the war, 44 families have left, like Christian families, not all Lutheran, I think only 2 were Lutheran, but 44 Christian families have left from Palestine, and many more are applying to leave. So this has always been a challenge, but now it's even escalated. Everyone is like, no, we don't want our kids to experience any more of the war, and of course we're such a small community. We're such a small number of Christians. That means we're all connected together. So the Christians' families who have been killed in Gaza when the attacks are happening or happened. Have resulted in, like, I know they died in Gaza, but the funerals were happening in our churches. They were happening in the West Bank. They were happening in Jerusalem. We were gathering a lot of our communities together, or we were just going to give our condolences, because there's nothing, like, this is all we can do, come together, pray, and give each other strength.
So the pastors, many of them were facilitating these funeral services, or at least going there to provide comfort.
Yes.
And all that. And I
Definitely.
remember because immediately after the October 7th, the General Secretary and I, as well as the Vice President for Asia, had an online meeting. You were there. And the impact, of course, was very immediate. And already even some of the pastors were expressing their own frustration, that they said, I'm not sure whether I can be here too. So I guess the pastors themselves are also struggling. And yet you need to provide pastoral care. Perhaps you could share a bit more from that perspective, how it's been for the pastors themselves.
I think that's the main challenge. Like, I think we are such few pastors that we don't have the time to take care of ourselves, and that we're taking care the whole time of the congregations. And we try to support each other in many different ways. And each pastor finds different ways to cope, or to, we cope. We don't deal with things yet because we're like, we'll do that later. So we're procrastinating things. And it is difficult, and it's still difficult. Yet I think we are all, because we all grew up there, we know how things are. Yet, and that's the danger of it, because we know we're used to it, and that's what makes us think, okay, but that's how life is here, and we think, okay, this is how things should go, but it is not. It is not how, like, this is the reason why we should fight back, or we should speak more up about how we're living, especially being such a small community. And we have, of course, our Christian community all together, that we're talking to each other in different, ways, and finding places to gather together and pray together. And I think we just had our pastor's retreat, for example, in summer, and I think that was one thing that we could at least come together and be supported.
I just want to appreciate you sharing, and maybe this is also a call for us for prayer, not just and also expressing our support for not only the congregation members but also the carers. Who cares for the carers is one thing. I mean, right now, I'm not sure how do you feel, because as a Malaysian, so I come from Malaysia, and I must say that I had when I was a young pastor, I had so little understanding of our brothers and sisters in the Holy Land, until there was an opportunity where the former Bishop Yunan visited Malaysia, and there were other pastors that visited, that I had the opportunity to meet someone like yourself, and then realize, oh, there's so much more than what I'm experiencing in Malaysia. And it's so important that we are here today to have this conversation, because it's so tempting for us to just look at ourselves. And for us in Malaysia, I mean, we live in a Muslim majority context, and sometimes we always think about the Malaysian problems and our challenges. But it's interesting when we hear your challenges, we can somehow connect and walk together. And I guess you have that kind of opportunities to share. And recently you just came back from the United States, having the opportunity to speak to 16,000 people, young people, to share about your experiences. And why this is significant is because when I saw Sally giving her talk to these 16,000 American kids, right, it reminded me that actually we met each other in 2012. And that time Sally was a teenager. I think I was a teenager too. No, I was not. I shall not lie. But I was doing my PhD, and then I was invited to share about Malaysia. But we were able to come together, and there was an exhibition, I remember, and you were part of the Palestinian delegation. I was the only Malaysian, and then we had someone from Bosnia, I remember, and there were others, where each of us were able to bring together our struggles, right? But of course, when we are together, we realize that people have a lot of misunderstandings or lack of information of what the others are experiencing.
Yeah.
And especially for the Israel-Palestine issue, I guess people, when they look at you or when they talk to you, very often you may have to help them overcome some stereotype or some misinformation. Could you share with us when you were talking to the 16,000 youth, or when you are in the United States often, what kind of questions that you had to deal with, and how do you help them to understand better what it means to be a Christian in the Holy Land?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think people don't realize that we are a Palestinian Christian community. So some people were very surprised that there were Palestinian Christians in the Holy Land. And I'm like, well, all the Christians are from the Holy Land. If you think about it, it's since 2,000 years. Where have Christianity been, or where has Christianity came up from? So I think people forget that a lot. And so it was an interesting experience. Or when in 2012, I remember like that was before. So that's why I was like, okay, I wonder how it changed. But 2012, I got the questions. So do you guys ride on camels, or do you, how do you go? Do you wear jeans? Do you so? These things that you have like kind of pictures in your head about the land that you don't really think of it in any different way. So it's so when that's why I was like a bit hesitant or thinking how if that's how people think about it, how they think about our lands and how they think about the Christian community there. Okay, where do I start? Into saying that. So when I talked to them, I talked about the different things. I made sure they know where I come from, because then relating it to how the gospel has been shared through Mary and through the challenges that have been happening since then, because Jesus was also living in the time of occupation, and so the land has always experienced that, and how we need to also continue speaking up just as Jesus spoke up against the injustices. And that was the first thing. And then the second thing was about the normalizations. So I was like, there are so many things that are not normal. It is, just to show you, the different norms was like, this is the checkpoint, like this is our previous bishop, who was controlled on the checkpoint by the soldiers in order to enter. That was one thing. And then you can see these are pictures that you would say, hey, it looks like pictures of Gaza, which is like this. This is 1948.
This is the black and white picture. Maybe you can turn your camera the other way around.
You're right.
Okay, that's much better. So this is 1948.
This is 1948.
Okay.
And this is now.
This is now.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was at the youth gathering. Mm-hmm. So, but I'll come to that.
Okay, so this is the checkpoint. This is what it looks like every day.
This is every day.
This is every day.
Yes.
And you bring your papers to these soldiers, mm-hmm. and then, because I remember talking to one of your pastors, and then he said when he was young, he remembered he was slapped by a soldier.
Yeah.
And this is, there were some. Traumatic experiences for him. Yeah. And I guess there are different stories that you could tell also in this. So this is the daily reality, even for going to work.
Yes, of course, every day to work, and some people get even denied to enter. So even if you have all the papers, if you have to go to the hospital, if you have to go to schools, if they say, no, not today, then you cannot do anything. Even if you call all over the country, hey, I need to come to work. Nothing.
So you have to help people at least see the realities and so on. And okay,
yes.
That's just another picture. This one.
That's also 48.
So this is 1948. Could
yes.
you explain a bit of this picture to it?
Yes. So a lot. Even my grandparents in 48 have left from Jaffa, which is now known as Tel Aviv. So Jaffa, this is also, I think, this is one picture where they just escape, or they were told, leave your houses, you will come back. And they gathered all that they can find with them, all they could, so that they can continue. But this is not the case. That some of them grabbed some stuff, some of them left their stuff, hoping they would come back. Some of them were kicked out of, they were literally kicked out of their homes, where they couldn't, they didn't have any choice other than leaving. And that's how people forget that, or I'm always wondering, what about when we talk about the history, why doesn't nobody talk about the people who are living there? Why does nobody talk about my grandparents who were living there, who were kicked out of their houses, who were still who did not have any other choice than leaving, especially now in Gaza, where since the beginning of the war, my grandma was watching the news, and she was like, "Oh, this is exactly what's happened to us," and we've been saying like this is exactly things are repeating themselves because this is the only thing that we know, that the Israeli military coming and or telling, "Hey, you need to get out," and sometimes they don't even call; the buildings are collapsing or buildings are being destroyed or bombed in many different spaces where you don't know where it's gonna happen, and then what are the excuses of anyone who would kill citizens or who would kill innocent people, children, women and men in different parts of the city. So I think this is quite there's no reasonable. It's not reasonable for anyone. So anyone who is like, it's okay that this is happening because, I was like, what kind of because comes after any kind of basic human rights or just the kind of like any kind of thing that doesn't deserve any human being that deserves to have a life. So I think in many ways people are just coming in different. People are forgetting what we have experienced. People are not listening to the people who have lived in the land for many years, who have known what's happening for many years. So I think it just there's not been enough talk about or not understanding. Like people don't listen to the people who are living there. People are telling us what we're feeling. People are telling us what we're experiencing, but nobody is listening to what we have been saying from the beginning. So the maps that I've shown you before, like in the past 2 days, there have been new invasions to the West Bank, which is the bigger part from that. And that means that what they're doing now in this invasion is the same thing that's also is happening in Gaza, because they're telling people to go out of their houses, and slowly they're taking more and more land from the Palestinians. So by that, what kind of land is going to be there? Where are people supposed to go? And what is going to be left in the land for all of us? Like to be living there. Like even if we want to have a Palestinian, to recognize a Palestinian state and everything, which land would it be? And would the Israelis, with all the settlements that they built, would they give all that land back to us? Because I mean, I don't think they will, honestly. And nobody, everyone is like, this is our home now, which is the same thing. Like in the settlements, there are people who have been living there since 70 years, so it is their home. But it's not their actual home, because there have been people living there since before them. And so it's all these questions that people are still questioning themselves. And even now, the talks that we have between our congregation members, this is what we're like thinking. What do we do next? What happens if what would we do if something happens? And most of the people the first place they would go to is the church.
And this is really important, because throughout this time, the church has been engaged in different kind of ministries. Whether directly to address it or indirectly. For example, I know that there are vocational centers, there are, you have a school, there's very, very well-respected and important school that does a lot of education. And so could you share a bit more about, in the midst of this kind of situation, yet the church still ministers, serves, the pastors still do their work, you still serve the young people. You gave us a glimpse of that. Could you give us like a outline or a spread of some of the ministries that your church is engaged in, so that we get a sense of what you're not sitting there and just, resign, but you're resilient, you continue education and so on. I think that would be interesting for us to know, if you could share. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have, as you said, we have 4 schools, and we have a diaconal ministry which serves in the whole country, but is located in Bejala. So they support a lot of our schools, and especially now because a lot of people are not able to afford the school funds. So something that they help with, because a lot of our children well, education should never stop, and that's one thing that we believe, that education is number one that we are happy to support. And then we have our gender justice ministry, and which serves in the society in different places, which serves with they work closely with our judge works with another judge, like they're both our judges in the church and our ecclesiastical court, which affects the society in a very positive way. So the gender justice policy is what we've taken up from the LWF, and we've worked with LWF.
Maybe I slow you down a little bit.
Yes.
Could you maybe let us know a bit more about the ecclesiastical court?
Yes.
So that, because some of them might be wondering, oh, that's interesting. And you have to, because I know one of your judges, etc. Maybe just a little bit of that, and explain on what sense gender justice is realized in these ecclesiastical courts.
Yeah.
So this is for the church,
yes.
Christians. Yeah.
So each church has its own ecclesiastical court, because the church, of course, is separated from the state. So everything that we process goes through, or that when there is any kind of issues of divorce, of children, family issues, family relations. That's one example with the family law, because the laws that we've had since now have been all under also the Islamic laws, the Sharia laws, and the Palestinian and Jordanian laws. So this is what is part of the Palestinian court till today. And so that's why we have taken up our own church laws, which changed the family law. For example, not getting women married under 18 years old, or having an equal custody between a man and his wife, a man and a woman, or having the inheritance of the kids not always going to the male man, but also to the women daughters. Or because, in our laws, if before the change of laws, if a man has, for example, my dad has 3 daughters, and he doesn't have any sons. So where does the inheritance go if no woman is allowed to inherit from her dad? So that would go to my cousin, because he would be a man who would get it. But thankfully we changed that. I'm
thankful for you too.
Well, yes.
That you also have. But it's interesting for me, because on one hand you're facing a lot of external pressures, but on the other hand the church still is reflecting on your internal ways of relating, and gender justice in this sense is such a concrete way that you're not just looking outside but also looking inward to improve what is inside. So I appreciate that. But carry on. What other areas, if you want to highlight about ministries too? You talk about schools, and the schools are not just for Christians.
No.
It's open. It's open to, and
I mean, we're obviously we have Christian schools, but the majority are Muslims. Like we have there's only one of our schools, which is in Beit Sahar, which is 98% Christian, but also not Lutheran. That's for sure. Like there's only maybe one Lutheran in each class, but a lot of Orthodox and Catholic churches they come to our schools as well, and we have. Even in one of the schools, we support also the ministries, or we have the education of the practicality. So some of them can study to become cooks, and then there's our environmental center that we're also proud of, which is also one great thing. Like within all the war and the occupation, you would say, okay, we always want to advocate for climate justice, but the first thing in order to stop the climate crisis is stopping the war, because it takes up a lot of or it's, you know what I mean. But within the environmental center, we're having more we're exploring more about the trees and the birds, and they not recently, but they've been planting more trees everywhere, because the Israeli occupation kills thousand years of trees, of olive trees, of groves, and doing that. I mean, the people are losing their lands because of all of that. But what we're doing is planting olive trees in order to
And there's something theological about it as well, I remember, because there was an article in the Lutheran World Federation website where there's a symbolism in this on top of climate justice. Could you elaborate a bit on that? Something to do with symbol of life? Or
yes, of
right?
course.
There was something about it. Yeah, obviously, but sometimes it's not so obvious.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly. I would say, okay, yeah, for sure. It's because we that's what we believe in, like that life continues, that life, like when one life dies, another one comes. And that's what we live out in our ministries. That's what we live in our daily lives when we try to find the hope, which is never lost with everything going on, because that's what makes people even go on with the hope that everything that one day things will be better. One day the occupation will end, and that's a symbol for that as well, the hope.
We will get back to hope again later.
Yes.
For now, some people might ask the question, Sally, many people are leaving. And of course we understand. I mean, we want to empathize. I remember hearing the pastor share in that group that we met online. He was very honest about it. I'm not sure I can do this, right? And yet after 1 year, I'm glad that he's still around. And pastors are still there serving. People are, what keeps you going? What keeps all of you resilient? Or to put it more bluntly, why do some of you still stay?
Yeah, I think.
Or what? Yeah, it's a difficult question. I'm not expecting a simplistic answer, but I guess some of us may wonder. Or what helps, strengthens you in the midst of this staying?
Yeah, first it's our home, and that's where we feel that it's not about. Of course, anyone would be like, "Oh, there's a crisis, we're leaving." But who would want to leave their home where they grew up in, the place that they established something in, and their families and so on. And mostly it's families. Even if one person or one child leaves, you would see that person come visit every summer or every Christmas and so on. Like, you're never completely left. Like, you cannot completely leave the country. Yet, if congregation members come and tell me we want to leave, there's no heart or no place where I could say, hey, no, don't leave, because I would not blame anyone who wants to leave living in that situation. But I think mostly, I think sometimes we don't really have an answer for it, why we keep on going, yet we do keep on going because of our history. Like, our grandparents, our great-grandparents have lived there since many, many years. And they have experienced it, and their hope, and that was that one day we will live in a free Palestine. And that's something we carry with us from generation to generation, that we do our best to make sure do what we can in order to reach that. And what gives us strength is each other. I think even coming to church sometimes is like, people would be like, why are we coming to church? That would be one thing, but they still do, because that's what holds them together, their faith. And their faith is what's very also, just like how the olive trees are built, and you know that the olive trees have wide roots, and that's the same way that they identify themselves with. They have really strong roots, that just like their faith is so strong embedded in that land, that as much as they hope and have faith, that's the same way for them being there. And everyone is like, if we all leave, who will be here? Like, this is Jesus's land, and who will be in Jesus's land or as a Christian community, we have to preserve that, and we are the ones who can tell Jesus' story and provide Jesus' message till today. This is what everyone believes.
So the last question, I guess we'll be wrapping it up. What gives you hope? Or how do you keep hope alive? And how can we join you to have hope for the future so that we do not stay in some despair and hopelessness? Could you share with that with us? And of course, maybe encourage us, how can we join you to have hope for the future?
It's, of course, not easy, but I think it's mostly, what gives us hope is this connection. I think this is what is happening here is one way that I feel like is effectful for our church, to know that we are all connected in different ways, and that we are making people more aware of what we are living. Because as a Christian community, I would believe that we all stand together in our faith, and that's exactly what we're living. And it's not always just talk that, hey, we're with you, but it's actually being here today with all of you, which I really appreciate, that I'm able to be here and represent my church and my congregation members who I always am stunned with how much strength they carry with them, and how much they give me strength to minister. So when I wonder why am I here when I come to church every Sunday morning, and then I'm like, yeah, I know why I'm here, and all of this comes together, which gives me strength. And I think them knowing that they have their brothers and sisters all over the world is what also keeps them going. I think you're all very welcome to come and visit Jerusalem, and everyone is always so excited to have people visit, especially Lutheran churches from abroad, because that's when they see, hey, we're not alone, and people know about us, and there's something happening. So what we can do is always share more, talk more about it, and do whatever we can in order to have a safe kind of community and be able to live out our faith.
Thank you. I believe that we have had a good time to listen to you, to have this conversation. Maybe there's a lot of things in our minds, and some of us might feel a bit uncomfortable or moved or whatever they're stirring in us. Let us turn that in a form of prayer. And let us also turn that also a commitment to be present with you, accompany. That's the Lutheran World Federation word we like to talk about. We are companions together. And when I hear what you are saying, it connects me with some of the conversations I had with those who are in Ukraine, Myanmar, in parts of Ethiopia, who are still having those struggles. We know that in different contexts there are various challenges, and yet we know that we are not alone. And that's so important. And I just want to assure you of our support and prayer. And I look forward to return to be with you as well. And let's give a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sivin.
I really don't know how to say thank you. I mean, this has been such a gift to us today. Thank you, Sally, and thank you, Sivin, for being here with us. Thank you for sharing, and we will continue to be with you in prayers, in our thoughts, and it is invaluable to know that we are one, and despite being one, we are in different places, but there is something so unique about belonging to the same church. So Sally is going to be with us tonight at 9 o'clock to lead the service. And at 7 o'clock, Sivin is going to be the one interviewed. And so we'll hear more about Sivin and his work at the Lutheran World Federation. So let's stand up and have a short break and come back. Thank you.